G'day, Deeks here from Australia. I've had a few requests to create some loading videos, show you to create some loading videos for the wonderful Pinup Popper and T-Arc themes. I'll take you through this today very quickly. We're going to use DaVinci Resolve, which is a freeware piece of software. You know, there's multiple ways of doing this. A lot of folks use Terry Red OPEC, use Vegas and After Effects, all work. This is great. Works very well. Commercial software, probably better than Resolve, but Resolve does what we need it to do, and it's free. And who doesn't like free? So what I've done is I've created inside the G drive, the Google Drive that I've shared with you, basically a DaVinci Resolve export file, which you can kind of see here. Just make sure I'm recording. And you can and the associated media. So what the process is to import each one of the files in sequence, load the media, and then we'll kind of use that as a bit of follow the bouncing ball. So download Resolve. It's free. Blackmagic Studios. We're currently on 16. I use 15. That's what I've learned. There is often major changes between revisions. I do recommend that you jump online, look at the tutorials. There are thousands of them. The concepts are quite foreign to someone not from a graphic design background, particularly when you start to get into animation. So do spend the time. Take a couple of hours to learn it through. DaVinci uses PostgreSQL databases and installs everything locally first on the C drive. I do recommend that you create here a separate database straight away. Primarily as you will quickly run out of storage on your C drive, and it needs high performance. It needs high performance on the drive. So again, as this is video editing, you do need a lot of grunts. I upgraded from 16 to 32 gig of memory in my system because I found that I wasn't able to run some of the complex loading vids through. So yeah, be warned. So what we do is, once you've got your database set up, is you import project, and you'll see I've already been playing around with this here. You've got a base video, right? So that's your, and I'll explain some of the concepts as we kind of go through. The preview kind of stays from the previous one, so you'll probably see a bit of King Arthur as you first load these up, as I was doing the Black Knight when I exported them. It'll go away next time you do it. So some fundamentals. So when you load it through, you'll have this view. So the first view that you get is media pool. So what a media pool is, as you can kind of see here as I'm resizing, is essentially kind of a shared drive for drive for media that you can have persistently attached. I tend not to use it, because I tend to create the videos as and when I go. You can do that. You have then a timeline view, which is where you do most of your work. You have a fusion view, which is where all of your animation occurs. You can see here my kind of non-transparent black overlay, and I'll explain that. I don't recommend that you do fusion first, primarily because it's very complex, and getting the concepts right in your head is difficult. So leave this alone. We'll show you a bit of it with the green screen later on, but leave this alone for now as you're learning. Colours here, so we'll play around with that in the final render, so you can play around with all sorts of the brightness, the gammas, all sorts over here, and we'll talk about some of the power windows and masks later on, so we can play around with the audio. And deliver tab is basically where you render your video. Now another piece to note is in project settings here, is you need to get the right sizing. So it's one of the mistakes that I made when I first started, and we're starting to rectify now, is getting the right sizing. It's 2160 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. Some good advice from Terry is to turn anti-aliasing off. You shouldn't need to do that on these imports, but if you do start creating things yourself, just be aware of them. Uh, because I'm not very talented, I download a whole bunch of stuff from YouTube, and that's about it. You know, there's some really cool people out there doing some really good stuff with animations. You know, it's awesome. I'm trying to learn that myself, but you know, most of my stuff is downloaded from YouTube. What I recommend is you use the YouTube downloader DDowner predominantly, because a lot of these sites tend to often not connect correctly or put pop-ups on your system, so you don't want that to happen. You can also upscale, so we tend to stick around 1080p or lower, not too low, because you start to lose quality. Anything higher stresses the system, so don't do that. And then you've also any animated GIFs that you use, Resolve doesn't like, so you need to convert them to MP4. So I use easygif.com, although all of them work. Anyway, so what we do is the way this works. There's two kind of core concepts. Is we use masks. So we kind of have a mask in mask and a mask out mask. So in the concept of what we're using here is white is mask in, so apply things to that mask. Black is mask out, so don't apply anything to this mask. Popper and most video editing things see black as transparent, zero color. So that's kind of important around what we're doing. DaVinci Resolve uses things in layers. So basically, start at the bottom, move to the top. The higher the higher you are up, the higher priority you have in image placement. You can kind of see here. You can't see this on here, but there is a circle right in there. If you actually look in the, as you saw before in the colors section, if you look in here, see the circle. Can't see it's black. That's sitting on top of this mask, so you get the T-arc circle. So the wheel in there. So let's get started. So click on Inspector. This is where you kind of play numerically with all of the stuff you import. You can also play some of it down here. You've got transform, crop, zooming, all the top, just special effects if you want. We won't do that now. The way you do it is get your video, download it first. Pretty simple. Drag it over here. Can drag it direct on. Drag it on. And there's the video. Hit play, rewind, play forward, play backwards, play backward for hilarious fun with people speaking gibberish backwards. The only thing you really need to worry about here is they come in linked. So if you start playing around with this, you'll start playing around with that. You can see as you move. Linking things, a bit like grouping, link, unlink, depending on what you want to do. See, I'm moving that now. It's useful for editing in other sounds, removing sounds, editing other video, that type of jazz here. But for now, what we'll do is I'm not going to play around with it very much, but you can use this tool here to cut. So I've cut that. You can also use this tool. Sorry. You can copy, paste, usual suspects. Important to note, it will paste where your timeline is, so you can kind of jump things in the middle. Most of the time, we're not wanting to get that fancy, so if you paste at the end of the frames, it kind of pops on. If you want to have multiple frames, which are more important for the T-arcs later on, you can move it to a different track. All that type of jazz. You can cut and paste onto there, but anyway. So what we'll do is actually important to note is the way the templates are set up is I've got only a very short kind of frontier. I'll try and keep to about a minute or so on the loaded videos. Some of them, like Skyrim was too epic to decrease. Skyrim's too brilliant a game. But adjust them. They have to be the same. Otherwise you're going to end up with a bunch of blanks. And then click edit up your sound. If I can do that properly. And then you've kind of got your video bit that you want to play with. Now, as you notice, you've got to bring the timeline to view it. That's above the T-arc, or the bottom where you want to have the video. What you do is in these composite modes, there's only two that you play with. So you play with you play with obviously normal to layer on, add puts it on the bottom, but what we're interested in is multiply. So not going to go into what the details of that is, but what multiply does essentially for what we need to use it for is applies it to the white, which is important. So now you can kind of see that he's playing there. So save it, and the reason why you save it is that it can crash on render on occasion. So just make sure that you save everything, make sure everything's cool, do some testing, click on the render tab here, and everything's pretty much set up for you. So the resolution's the correct resolution, frames are the correct frames. We're getting all of the data in here. The only things you really need to do is change the format to MP4. That's Black Knights I was playing around with before. Go to Apollo 13, create a test directory, call it something like base. And that's it really. So then add it to render queue. We got that right? Yeah, add it to render queue, start render. So render queue the movie. So now you'll see in this test directory base,
Apollo 13 flight controllers, listen up.
Apollo 13. You know, I'm going to choose a bit more of an epic scene later on when I finish it, you know, and actually do something, but that's the base. So file, project manager, import project, excuse me, excuse me, create center video. It's picked up my this is the center TR, so it's picked up the Black Knight preview. For some reason again it'll go away when you do it the second time. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is media. So I've got media in here already. Try and get it set up like this. The way you bring in media is you go stage 2 media, drag and drop, already there for you. Pretty simple. Again, you see the white, which is rendered to me, so mask in. Let's mask out. I'm going to do a mistake here just to show you about the layers. So I've got a center picture. Drag it in, drag it onto another layer, see that at the top, go to our thing, composite mode, multiply it in. You see that it's multiplied over the white of this, which is your TR. Talks about priorities, right? I said before the top is the priority, top is the highest, move track up, boom, gone away. That's dangling over the side, so maybe we either want to drag these to bring it across, but for static images just delete. There you go, that's that done. So go to render. This is why you can do things so quickly. You know, got to get the right artistic kind of thinking going, so when you're sitting in your meetings at work you can think about what videos you're going to be doing at the night time. But once you get it in, the template's set up, you just kind of bang through them. MP4, it's the only thing it doesn't auto-populate. Oops. Add to render queue. Start render. Number 2. Apollo 13, test directory. Some Facebook posts. Here's the center. So even if they are images, do render them in as a video. Predominantly so you can, you know, kind of manage them easy later on in the stack. That being said, you know, if you're adding just individual images to the last video, you know, do so without creating a kind of a center video. So next one, project manager. Oops. Import projects, stage 3. This is the T-arc, it's a bit more complex. So as I said before, you can kind of you can have multiple videos going on. Alright, so just for testing, you can see, as I mentioned before, you can't get animated GIFs in, won't drop in, but you can get MP3, MP4 GIFs that I've converted. So once it's in and you want to play around with things, so say if you want to put things on multiple sides of the T-arc, you can manipulate it like any other image. Kind of play around with it. You can play around with the pitch. You can do funky things with it if you want. Leave it like that. Do some pitch stuff. Anyway, you can play around with that. So if you want to create a second copy of that, you just copy, paste, move it up, plop it in, drag it across, do some rotation. There you go. Again, it's over the T-arc. Not very neat, but it's good for the video. Multiply. I did this the wrong way actually. If you want to have the same composite mode, just composite mode the first one, it'll apply to the second. As you can kind of see, it's a video, right? So across the T-arc, so you want to kind of maybe have a few of them. So copy, put it at the end, paste. Then you can drag it down to match the T-arc. Videos will drag down across the frames they've got available. Images like this, you can drag and drop as much as you like. Click apply. There you go. You got some rockets going on. I might get rid of that in the final render, but good enough for when I actually do it properly. But good enough for today. Change to Apollo 13, test directory, T-arc sites, MP4, start to render queue, start render, done. Apollo 13, test directory, T-arc sites, there you go. Now we're kind of onto the final two. So the so if you import a project here, final render. Now this is where it gets a bit more complex with layers. So what you do is you bring in your videos from before and start bringing them in. So do play around with this. I often get it wrong, so it requires a bit of kind of give and take. But bring your base in. Okay, so the base is now rendered with that black in there. The audio's in. I do find it does like to import audio that isn't there at times. I'm sure there's a setting I'm not setting. Do delete it because it increases your file size, and it often gets in the way of your base audio. So that one didn't. So you can kind of see your T-arc coming okay. What you should do is, given this is going to be the final render, is delete unused audio. You don't want any additional space. Okay, and you see there was no audio before, but it's added some in. Delete that audio. Now what you want to start doing is you want to start adding, not multiplying, because we're not applying a mask anymore, we're just adding this to the video. So you can see now you've got the base here, you've got the T-arc sides, you've got the Apollo 13 arc. Now you can see it's missing missing the T-arc itself. So in the template, bring it across. But that's actually alright. You can see it applying okay. There we go. You can at times sometimes you get a bit of bleed, so you can bring this kind of T-arc over the top. The other transparency coming across the top if you wish. Kind of an add mode, but in this situation we don't need it. Test again. So there we've got a essentially a working T-arc loading video. This stage you can kind of do all sorts of different stuff. So you can kind of you can add in logos. Remember the Harry Potter one had all the different houses going around there. You can add them in transparent, a normal, play around with the text. I've got an Apollo 13 logo. It's important to know, give credit to the people that create this stuff, right? Because it takes a lot of work. I'm not talking about the loading videos. I'm talking about some of the media. If you're borrowing it, I've borrowed a few back glasses in my time, so I do give credit to that. Andrew's given me a fair few of his topper videos for the side, so give credit where it's due. I don't really like this, but it'll. I'm going to change this in the final one, but for demo's sake, we'll put that there. Bit of a logo. There you go. So that's kind of ready for rendering. So you want to try and make sure that everything. See, the center's kind of stuck in there. So make sure you've got your. Make sure that you've got your audio all lined up. So. So let's delete that. Make sure there's everything's kind of clean. So yeah, so everything needs to line up. So you've got your Apollo 13 logo. It said text will scale. Sorry, JPEGs will scale. Videos won't. So you just need to grab another bit of the video. Paste it, shrink it. Paste it, shrink it. Don't know why that media's offline. Looks alright to me. Yeah, looks alright. That's it. It's a very ugly Apollo 13 video, which I'll fix later. So you go File, Save, Project, give it a render. Call it final render. Call it render. MP4. Add to render kit. Oops. Actually, don't want to render it in there. You can kind of see in the Black Knight, right, where I've been doing the same kind of thing here. But bring it to Apollo 13, test desktop, call it render, add to render queue, start render. And now we've got the
Apollo 13 flight controllers, listen up.
Kind of an okay T-arc. Not going to write on too much about it. Now there's a few things you need to do to get this to work properly. So that's kind of in a base sense kind of working okay. There's a couple of things kind of post render that I like to do just to make sure that everything you're kind of getting as high quality as possible. So, and that's in the 5th project. So if we import not stage 5 media, stage 5 post process, click on that. There's nothing in there, right? There's a black mask that helps get rid of some of the jaggies, which I'll kind of bring in. That helps eliminate some of the jaggies because you see it sits above the T-arc. And we need to do some colour modification around brightness. Various people do things differently. It's do experiment with this. We'll talk about it, but make sure that you kind of get what works for you. You can kind of see here that doesn't really matter where that is because it's already above it. I'd put it at the top to make it priority, just because it makes me feel better about things. Now, what we need to do is we need to muck around with the colour here. So we the base transparency of anything that we do here is not sufficient. The black will be picked up as a transparent colour. So in anything that you do, black will be picked up as transparent. So what we need to do is we need to make the black. We need to make the black a little less black. So you can't really perceive it as a human. It'll be a little bit brighter, but Popper will not pick it up as black, so therefore you'll render your blacks as black. I did an incredibly bad job explaining that. But so what you do is basically you need to increase the base brightness a little bit of the T-arc. We have something in here called power windows, and we'll talk. There's lots of kind of cool things that you can kind of do with power windows for just getting the T-arc up and running. I'll just show you how to do this. So what you do is you need to create a curve, right? And the curve applies to the active window. So what you need to do is you need to kind of select. It doesn't really matter where it selects, because there's none of the black that you're selecting, really. Do try and be as neat and tidy as possible, be as close to the edge as you can, but for today, it doesn't really matter. Try and get around the video, because any blacks you don't want to not have rendered as black. Click on that, and there you've said that's selected. See, it's all selected here. What you do is just simply boost that up a little bit. So this is brightness lift, so you can see all the way through. So just lift it 1. I generally find 1 or 2 is fine. Some of them, like Tommy that you saw me work on, that needs to be a bit higher in the final render. That's it. Then you just re-render that again. So render it as Apollo 13 test directory final render. To render queue, start render. Now you've got a slightly bright, and you can kind of see I missed the anti-jag a little bit. That doesn't really matter for this one. Make sure these all line up. Final render.
Apollo 13 flight controllers, listen up. Give me a go, no.
Plays well enough, right? So you see that that's been expanded a little bit. If you want to, I'll add maybe a little bit of green screen in. Got a bit of glare there on the camera, I've noticed, as the afternoon sun comes here in Australia. I'll show you a few things around green screening. If you want to start playing with green screening, it does cause some pain for you, and it's caused me a lot of pain. So I don't actually recommend it. But if you want to start learning green screening, there's a simple way of doing it. So there are green screen renders available for you on YouTube, fairly easily to download. I've just grabbed hold of this one. When you import a clip at a different frame rate, make sure you change it to the base frame rate. You want it at 30 frames per second. So I may include this in the final one, but find something that's got a green screen element. And this is where you start to use Fusion. So put it at the beginning of the track. Click on it. Make sure that you use Fusion, which is here. So what you do is Fusion's highly complex. The way to insert a function is Control space. The function you're after is delta keyer. Right. So a delta keyer allows you to basically select a color and make it and remove the color. So you add. The media in function, right, essentially is the media that you're bringing in, and so you can click on these 2 buttons, and that will show you the media that's being brought in. If I can click on the right thing here, you can see that the media is being brought in. The delta keyer is the selection criteria. Alright, so you can, the way you do it for green screens, you grab hold of this little colour thing and you drop it out, and that's the media out. So you see now, if you go to media out, it's now become black, and black is transparent. So that is essentially the green screen element. It works okay. If you bring in a video now, so maybe the final render, Maybe bring that above. We've now got a rocket. Looks pretty cool. Do be aware of the green screen in there though, because this bleed here will cause all sorts of problems in Popper when it gets rendered. Maybe if you use this, then you can use the uncompressed video, but I quite like that. I may put that in the final one because I enjoy pain. There's also elements, if you want to create transparency, you can do so in this area. So if you want to create transparency, what you do is you can essentially click on an image such as this one, right, and then you select here the color picker an element of color that you want to make transparent. So maybe probably a bad one. By the way, if anything that you want to reverse in this, you can just kind of click on the reverse bit, reverse it backwards. But let's say I want to make that kind of brown back there transparent. So click on it, click on the brown, kind of see up here it goes transparent. It's what's selected. Then, as per kind of most transparency, add an alpha output, which is down here. So this is the kind of very similar to that node concept before. Kind of media in, it's the media channel out. This is the alpha channel, which is the kind of transparency channel. Drag that to there, and now we've got everything that isn't that color is transparent. Reverse it, and now only that is transparent. So you get some funky effects. You could do that to kind of sort out transparency, in a better example of that, but that's how you kind of make things transparent at the video level. And that's about it. Hopefully that's useful. Do ping me if you have any problems with it. They do get uploaded. Create those loading videos. It takes about an hour or two to actually create them with a level of half decency. Do need your help. So keep plugging away at it. So yeah, hopefully at some point you get some time to play some pinball. So nice to present to you all. Thank you.